Hello, welcome to Framework. I am Al Schwartz. With me, as always, is John Bernard.
Hey, I'm here. Hi.
We have our most overstuffed episode, maybe ever, to deal with today. We are changing up our format slightly. We're going to be a little more topical because we're very stoked about the return of ANDOR to our streaming devices. And we're going to do an episode on ANDOR each week as it goes forward. I guess it's going to be on for about 4 weeks. Is that right?
That's right. 4 weeks. The next 4 weeks.
Yeah, and they're going to drop 3 episodes at a time on Tuesdays. So we're also going to move the day we drop this. And, we're not going to have the fastest turnaround time of anybody on the internet. So we're still going to be lagging slightly, but we're going to try and keep up with it just because we love that show so much and want to say a lot about it. There's a bunch of other stuff that's happened recently that we have both been watching simultaneously, which doesn't happen as much if we're not, assigning ourselves homework for the main podcast. But we both recently got to the theaters to see both Alex Garland's Warfare and Ryan Coogler's Sinners. And why don't we start with Warfare? I have a feeling we have less to say about that one.
That's what everyone wants us to talk about here. Warfare.
It's where the discourse is at, yes.
Yeah. Okay. We're huge Alex Garland fans. If you listened to us talk about Civil War last year, I think we gushed about that pretty effusively. I think we were on the high end of reactions to that film. I still like that movie a lot. So it was kind of a necessary thing for me to go check out the new Alex Garland, even though movies about modern warfare, movies about soldiers in the Middle East, especially super serious ones that sort of eschew character and plotting, which is what this was more or less advertised as, not really my cup of tea. Movies I don't really gravitate towards. I wouldn't have seen this probably if it didn't have Alex Garland as the director in what is allegedly going to be his last directing effort. We'll see if that sticks. But
well, we were pretty positive on Civil War, but there was the sort of the question lurking around the edge of there of like, is there enough of a concept here for a movie? It feels like he's deliberately avoiding thematic content in a lot of ways and going this route of trying to do something more experiential and less traditional sci-fi. That's how he made his name as a sci-fi writer and as one of the most intelligent, thoughtful ones in a genre driven by thoughtful ideas. Warfare goes even farther into the no ideas. It's like, what if we took the battle parts of Civil War and said, but what if Civil War had absolutely no ideas or no concepts?
Yeah,
other than you're there when the bullets fly.
Warfare makes Civil War look like a Russian literature in regards to theming. It's very much just. I mean, I guess you could extrapolate a lot like that. These guys don't know what they're fighting for. It is. I mean, when I came out of it, my feeling was like that was kind of like watching a Star Wars movie from the point of view of the stormtroopers, which that sounds super negative and fascist, but it's not. It's really just about, these are guys who are soldiers and they don't really know what the bigger picture is. They're just in the middle of the shit and they have to deal with it. And that's what the movie's about. But at the same time, it is, watching people in, super high powered mega tanks, with state of the art technology storming into these basically clay hovels and destroying them. And that family focused on that sort of gets a little bit of focus, even though the camera is locked in with the soldiers, is kind of the emblem of that, I feel like. So I'm not saying it's without theming. It definitely has opinions on the war. But, I mean, ultimately, yeah, it's just about how brave these guys are, really.
Yeah, you have to do all the heavy lifting yourself to bring those in. And the stuff of like ending with like a shot of the ruined street and the family coming out, like sticking their heads up. It feels like a really weak attempt to be like, well, there was some idea here. And it's completely overshadowed by everything that the movie does prior to that. And also, it's hard to make a case. I mean, it's really strange. I don't know what's going on with Alex Garland right now, other than I think he's sort of fallen under the thrall of his military advisor on his previous film, and is now kind of I don't know, like a fanboy is the wrong word, but very interested in just modern warfare, special forces shit, which is genuinely very cool stuff. I get that, but
no, it feels like they were researching Civil War and became enamored of these people that they were researching. Like, like these guys are these. This is a movie right here. Let's make a movie about these guys. These are amazing. And yeah, I think if you were hanging out with them, you would think that. It makes sense to me.
Except it isn't quite a movie, and
No.
those guys don't show up on screen in any way that really. I mean, they kind of are memorable, but they don't. It's remarkable how little characterization there is in this movie. So it's not American Sniper, where it's taking a real soldier and doing the Audie Murphy thing with them.
Right. I mean, this goes out of its way to prevent us from really empathizing or frankly, even differentiating these characters very much. There's one who, there's a few who get wounded severely, and you can't really say, well, that one, that one's the Human Torch is basically all you can say is because you recognize the actor. That's the only way to differentiate them.
Or does it prevent us from doing anything but empathizing with them?
I don't know. I mean, it's certainly, I hated looking at the leg getting moved around, that looked like it hurt, but they are essentially all the same guy is how it feels. Like my X-Force or XCOM squad has more personality to it.
True.
Than just this array of guys going in there, even with actors I recognize and like.
I recognized, sort of the main guy, as much as there is one main guy, as the lead from Reservation Dogs, and I recognized Michael Gandolfini as having a bigger mustache and just generally puffier physique than Navy SEALs usually do on film.
Sure, right.
But again, that's physically they looked most distinct from the others in their face, not because of the characterizations.
I think Will Poulter is a great, exciting actor. He didn't do anything in this that couldn't have been done by, that wasn't literally done by every other actor in the film. Essentially, it's not a showcase for them. Obviously, I mean, I guess the guys who get wounded, that's you're doing a little bit more there. But even still, they are faceless in a way, and I'm not entirely sure if that is out of respect. For real people. I mean, it's kind of a reveal at the end of the movie that this is all quite literally true. Like the character names, everything is accurate. So much so that they show pictures of everybody at the end, and like fully 2/3 of the people they show pictures they blur out the faces. And you're kind of left with like, I wonder what the deal with that is exactly. Is it just sort of like they didn't directly participate with the film? I mean, it's too many of them to have complained, obviously. They wouldn't have made the movie if this many guys were like against it, I'm sure. We would have heard about that. Yeah.
I think they just didn't sign the waiver for whatever reason.
I guess so. It's odd. It's a weird way to end the film. And or is it just like we're not making a movie about characters? It's going to be purely in the moment, in their heads. You will hear nothing about backstory. You're barely going to get names. Media res, deal with it. I mean, that is the power of the film. Essentially, that's what you're going to see. And it does work. As an action film, it is quite exhilarating in a way. It's not a bad movie, but I think there's a ceiling on how high it can get for me.
I didn't think it was as exhilarating because I do think this. I mean, it's on a continuum from Black Hawk Down. It goes through Civil War to this, and so I've seen this sort of intense urban combat, like close up stuff before. This is the least satisfying version of that. I mean, I think I mentioned in Civil War that it was remarkable how like that provides all the intensity of Black Hawk Down, but our point of view characters are journalists that are just tagging along trying to take pictures, so they don't have like actual military goals they're trying to achieve. And warfare, in a way, it puts guns back in our guys' hands that we're following, but it takes it even further, where we don't see our guys get a confirmed kill in this entire movie. We never see. The only time we see anybody, we see them shooting up at buildings, and sometimes there's a person up there on the roof that that ducks down. We never see them actually hit anybody. There's like an overhead shot from a helicopter and like night vision where you see the people coming, the reinforcements coming, like shooting on the street, and a glowing form of somebody down on the other end of the block fall over. That's as close as we get to anything. And so it kind of robs this of the Call of Duty, sensation of satisfaction of watching people expertly wield high-powered weaponry to down mobs of enemies.
It does seem like its intention is somewhat to undercut that, like to make it not feel like Call of Duty, to make this as sort of scary and random and sort of insane as possible. It is, it's scary, I would say. It is that a little bit, I mean, the sound design from Civil War carries over a little, obviously. And you feel like you're there a little bit. It's the sort of thing where you don't want to be there. There's no fun to the violence and action in this film.
It is intense. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it works at that level.
I don't know that if the idea is, and I'm not sure how much credit to give Alex Garland on this front anymore, but if the idea is this is supposed to be an anti-war film, it's supposed to show you how horrible it is to be up there. And then I still think we have nothing to hold on to except for the heroism of these guys and like their bravery and how tough they are and how awesome and destructive their weaponry is. There's nothing else in this film to latch onto, and especially like the very end, trying to tack on a picture, the ruins of the street or whatever, completely undermined any anti-war sentiment that comes from that by having the credits roll with like the actual SEAL guys returning to the actual location, like it's where they won their high school football championship.
Yeah.
Like hugging each other and putting us up, and we go, wow, you guys really,
I mean, look, it doesn't totally work for me. I would say this is my least favorite Alex Garland film. I think it's probably a little bit more competent and, competent's the wrong word. They're all competent. It's a little bit more effective in its chosen lane than Men is, but Men's just a way more interesting movie. So,
talk about just nothing but idea there.
Yeah. So it feels a little anonymous in a way. I feel I've seen movies like this, although this might be the most extreme, just in media res, no frills, no story, no themes kind of version of it that I can recall. And there's something to that, but it's not the sort of thing I'm going to seek out or remember.
That's what it's going for, and it's a type of movie I love. It's entirely a siege movie, which I love, and this will bring us over to Sinners, which everybody's ranting and raving about. I thought was quite good, but I have a few quibbles with the biggest one being I wanted more from the siege movie element of that. It felt like it came in too late, and I wanted, I don't know, one more move between like the inside the fort faction and the invaders outside, of trying to, that they needed to get out and get something from the outside and get back in safely or whatever, little mission like you get in Assault on Precinct 13 or classic
right
movies.
Interesting. I didn't even connect that they are two siege movies. They're so different from each other.
Yeah. That's the only connection I'm going to be able to pull here.
Well, yeah, I mean, structurally very similar, at least in the second half. So are we done with Warfare? I think I am. I'm ready to talk Sinners.
I think the entire film world is done with Warfare already.
Very good. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I would feel churlish to complain about much in this film, is the truth, because it's just so damn entertaining. I'm kind of with you. There are things about this that I'm just like, hang on now. Hang on. There are things about this that are not quite ideal or perfect, I think. It has some small issues and some like plotting issues and some logic issues. And I'm just like, I don't know that this all really holds together necessarily, but who cares? It's just so fun.
It does,
an entertainment, a rapturous one.
Yeah. To embrace the obvious pun, it bites off more than it can chew, ultimately, I think. It's an overstuffed movie. It's got too much going on, and yet my critiques mainly revolve around I want more of things, not less of things. Which I think
can be the problem. That can be the issue when you do this, when there's too much good stuff on the table.
Yeah. So I wanted more of the siege segment of the movie, and I wanted the Klan massacre at the end felt a bit tacked on. I felt like we needed at least one more beat in the middle of this movie with the Klansmen doing something. Even just like when the vampire first shows up at the shack that where the couple is, and they have Klan hoods there. If that's the lead Klan guy that they bought the building from is that guy's dad or uncle or something, and he's like leaving them after making the plan with that guy to attack the juke joint as that scene's beginning, and then he leaves, and then the vampire comes in. Like, then it reminds us of that presence. It's a little more constant throughout. It doesn't feel like it feels like there's some unfinished business there instead of just like, oh, okay, we're just going to do a big shoot 'em up at the end now. I guess
it's a good shoot 'em up. That helps.
Yeah, look, I hate to complain about.
He's got like Tommy guns hidden in the ground with he's dug a ditch for him so he can pull the cloth off. Oh, he's got another round because he buried the Tommy gun and stuff like that. Yeah. All fun.
It's a Grand Theft Auto mission.
Yeah. It's a good one. All that. I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to complain about all that. I loved all that. I mean, it's the easiest thing you can do. It's points from the paint. It's I haven't seen where they shoot up the Klan. Everyone's going to enjoy that.
It feels so low stakes though after all the characters that we care about have been dispensed with. It's just,
oh man, this movie does not feel like a movie where everyone dies, does it? I mean, there's one survivor. There's one. We're spoiling Sinners real bad here.
Yeah. We're sorry. It turns out I didn't get the memo that there was mid and post credit sequences here.
Did you leave the theater early? No.
I did. I was playing hooky, and there had been over 30 minutes of trailers and ads at the beginning.
Sure.
And I was in a hurry to get out, and I had been trying to avoid spoilers, and so I missed now I know what happens in the mid-credit scene, but that means there's 2 more survivors really of this movie.
Well, are they alive?
I mean, that's an interesting thing about the vampires here.
Yeah, exactly.
They're presented as a hive mind, but still have their personalities.
I wanted more on this. This is what I'm talking about when I'm saying, like, okay, there's things I'm not quite following here. And the nature of the vampires is certainly part of that. And the thematic purpose of the vampires is part of that. These things, I don't want to say they're half-baked. This is all stuff I feel like might be revealing to me on a second viewing, where I can be like, okay, I can clock this all now. I know the full picture, so I understand what's going on exactly. But this first time, I'm kind of still trying to coalesce it in my mind, make it make sense. And because I find it fascinating. Like I assume going in, like, okay, so the vampires will be like the Klan. They'll be the oppressors, and it's not. No. We're beyond anything like that. Yeah.
Well, then I thought, okay, they're like the record company. They're a cultural appropriation metaphor that it wants to
they kind of
suck
are
the black joint track, and they kind of are. But one, like you're saying, even if this is a little half baked, I'm not generally for fully baking allegories.
Fair point,
because they don't tend to work when they're completely and fully baked for me entirely.
They also have to be vampires. Yes.
They also have to be vampires. I was impressed though or pleasantly surprised that it was not as simplistic as my assumptions were initially. That
nothing in
this metaphor about assimilation has more room for like the allure or the positive qualities of assimilation.
Yeah,
and that speaks to me because I'm skeptical of big complaints about cultural appropriation and all that more generally. Partially, I guess, because I'm, a Northern European mutt of my background, so I don't have a really distinct cultural identity to hew to.
Yeah.
Other than, I guess, there's some Irish in my family, but like as this movie posits, Irish is almost the most assimilated oppressed group that's in American culture. It's most fully washed into the rest of the mix. But no, I thought this was going to be a thing about how the black music is pure and great, and the white people come along and ruin it. And I'm skeptical of those claims just because, or when people get really deep into culture appropriation stuff, because it presupposes, I guess, a view of culture as a fully baked idea that is like finished and perfect in some way, and then you're not supposed to mess with it. Whereas I think every culture is a mishmash of appropriated influence from earlier cultures, and the edges are always muddy and bleeding, and that, say you get Chinese immigrants with Southern accents in the black juke joint of this in this movie too.
Yeah, and I think it's got all that stuff on its head, in its head, and it's great to. I don't know. I mean, this comes from the guy who just made 2 Black Panther movies for the MCU. So in a sense, he knows what the inside of the system looks like, directly. The other thing that's kind of cool about Coogler, really cool about Coogler, is that, he maybe more than anyone else maintained his personal voice and stamp within the context of those. And he's also not like a guy with a huge body of work to draw from and be like, oh, you can really see the Scorsese in this. No, he's made 2 movies before he made the Black Panther movies, and they're still distinctly him and feel very personal within the, I guess Shane Black is the only one who comes close, and he's way more glib.
Well,
as to having their voice shine through in these big superhero movies.
And Coogler's movies started with ones based on a real life incident, sort of a docudrama, and then it's franchise IP stuff.
Right. Even Creed is part of that too. Right. So like his up until Sinners, his only real quote unquote personal film would be Fruitvale Station.
Yeah.
But they're all
even that.
Original. Yeah.
But this is his first totally original work,
right.
The piece of fiction. And for that, I do think again, going back to the overstuffness of this, if I have another gripe about it, I would say it's that the twins have like one too many hats between them. And
they have a red hat and a blue hat.
They do. But I mean, in their backstory, I got a little lost in the sense of, okay, so these guys, it's 1932. They are World War I veterans. Mm-hmm. So that they must have left 15 years ago to fight in that war. And then they were up in Chicago fucking around with Capone. And then they also robbed Capone and his Italian or Irish rivals or something. And also they stopped over in this other community founded by freed slaves that they didn't last in. And also everybody, so like, where's the timeline here? If there's still these legends, they must have, and they must have left when they were like 16. And these local legends still, they have these, maybe they came back after World War I and then left again.
Deep roots in the South, I think. Look, these characters are heightened. They're absolutely heightened. They're very much Smoke and Stack. They're broad characters, and they are sort of outsized in a way. Everyone's a little outsized in this.
Yeah.
Delroy Lindo is the most old timey blues musician.
Oh yeah, but I wouldn't change a thing about that.
Of course not. Wunmi Misaka is not just his ex-girlfriend, but a hoodoo woman. She has all sorts. She has the magics, and she can explain all the things. These are all archetypes in a way. I don't know if Haley Steinfeld's an archetype exactly, but it's a broad characterization nonetheless.
Sure, and she's great in the role.
Yeah.
But that's another thing, sort of hats on hats with these backstory. They both have these fraught romantic relationships that in this town they're coming back to, which the timeline on that also confused me because I couldn't quite tell how old the people were supposed to be. And it's just like none of it's bad necessarily, but I just feel like there's one less thing in there. And maybe like that almost is a first movie deal or first, like it's almost an element of fan fiction or of a, like with your original character, you're trying to fit too many ideas and backstory concepts onto your one guy that you've fallen in love with and you want to get out there.
Vampire action movie, man. I think it's fine. I think it's, even laudable to kind of do this with these guys. They are superheroes, essentially.
Yeah, but superheroes have generally pretty clean, more simple backstories. Mm-hmm. until they run for a long time in the comic books, and then they hit the most convoluted
right,
personal histories ever. So yeah, this does. I don't know. Yes, it feels like this. We came out issue 200 of the Smokestack Twins comic book.
Well, it's movies of this type. I kind of feel like, we're doing the exact opposite thing of Warfare here.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to create big, broad characterizations, big, memorable characters. I think maybe when it comes to the twins, I think my issue might just be maybe it should be 2 actors. Michael B. Jordan is awesome. I love him. He's so good. He really holds the camera.
He is really good.
It really helps that they're twins necessarily narratively.
Yeah, I think this and part of the scuttlebutt now around this is that it costs so much money that even though it's a huge hit, it's like just starting to break even, and maybe it's not worth the expense of
there's some
doubling this guy up
there. Yeah, if you can there's a lot of people who could have played that role quite well. That would have been great. Daniel Kaluuya could have been in there, or I was about to say
Jonathan Majors in a different era. Yeah. No, and
Boyega, a lot of people.
It didn't feel like the movie was avoiding giving us like dramatic scenes between the two of them for technical reasons. So I will give it credit for that.
I also don't think the performances are as good as he is. I don't think they're different enough that unless they've got the red and their blue caps on, I'm going to definitely be able to tell which one I'm looking at.
Or a gold tooth. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're not, I mean, it's kind of thrown out there immediately which one's sort of the quieter one, which one's the more flashy one. But I don't know.
Right.
When they're in a one-on-one dialogue scene, they don't act that differently.
Right.
Because they're both and so it's not clear, is there going to be a villainous one? Are they both villainous figures? Ultimately, it takes a long time for that to come into focus. Like if they're going to be bad influences on their cousin or what. And it turns out they're both pretty good influence, pretty good guys.
Yeah.
So they're not as distinct as all that. And maybe having 2 actors with 2 different faces, like, yeah, they don't need to be identical twins. They could be just brothers.
Yeah.
There's kind of an older brother and a younger brother in the dynamic already. So yeah.
Right.
But whatever.
The other thing problem. I mean, it's fine. He's great. So it's fine. But
Yeah. The other thing that's interesting about this to me, and I guess it's sort of an allegorical thing, but not as much because it's in the text more, and it reflects Coogler's, like you said, history with these big franchise IPs, is that this movie is very focused on finances and negotiating finances and the ideas of, the vampires with their old world gold coins versus the wooden nickels you get paid with if you are playing just for the black sharecroppers. And that whole idea of navigating sort of, we want to do this thing for the community, but we can't necessarily keep it open with just the community's money. And so Black Panther has to be for black people, but also a bit for everybody to keep that whole train running.
Yeah, it's an interesting angle to this. I mean, when you get to the overstuffedness, this is something I feel doesn't quite get a resolution or a cap on it, so to speak, which is this idea that they actually can't continue to do what they're doing here. Even with the vampires not being in the movie, this is not a sustainable business venture they've taken. Even if you take the clan out as well, the people that they are counting on as their audience, as their customer base, is not going to have the money to support the financial needs of the juke joint. And they sort of start talking about this, and then there's a vampire siege, and it all it doesn't matter anymore. But that's an interesting angle too. It seems their plot is fundamentally flawed in a lot of ways, and that could be the case. I still kind of want to see them reckon with that and be like, well, here's the real idea. Here's what we're doing. Here's why that's the case and why we made these decisions. But they don't really. They kind of just like, we're going to have a big party. Essentially, this is about a big party getting shut down by vampires.
Yeah, that's there's so many different pairings you could make with this movie as a double feature. From Dusk Till Dawn would be an obvious one, but
certainly
you remember? Did you ever see the Steve McQueen's Small Axe series on Amazon?
No, I never got through that. No,
there's one that's just about a house party in London in the 70s of just people throwing an all night reggae party, and it's pretty great and would make a really good sort of pairing with I guess you do that first, and Sinners in the middle, and then From Dusk Till Dawn at last as a sort of more intense vampire siege. But there's so many movies in this movie, and they said if we're trying to shave this thing down, you could cut a lot of that sort of the economic stuff out of this about how the jukebox joint is going to operate.
I found all that interesting, though. But
yeah, I don't want to take that out.
I get you. Yeah,
I don't want to take that out. I say, but that stuff only makes it in. It's not just that too. There's the back and forth negotiations with Delta Slim and him talking about how well
don't get those. Don't get.
You're going to pay me 20, but they're going to pay me 10, and they're definitely going to be here next week. And I don't know about you, and how that works. He's coaching the girl about how to negotiate with him for washing his car, and he's bartering with the Chinese couple about prices. Like that stuff only makes it into this movie, I think, if it's Ryan Coogler doing it. If it's somebody who, one, has spent their entire career sort of navigating these murky waters of working for giant studios and trying to do your personal thing that connects more directly with the community while doing it, and is hyper aware of those finances. And also, two, was so successful doing that you have carte blanche to make this movie and basically be as long as you want it to be and not have an executive looking over your shoulder giving them the notes that I am here.
Well, is that why it feels so much more fully formed than anything else, though? Or not fully formed, I guess. It does feel that, but like it feels distinct in a way nothing else is lately. And that's why people are going wild for this. It feels like an expression of an artist rather than a product. Even as it is fully satisfying as a Hollywood movie.
And we haven't mentioned, the most direct expression of that is the big bravura sequence in the middle where the across time and space musical number.
It's slightly Bill and Ted, but I do love it. Yes.
Well, I wonder if you say that, and I hate giving these type of granular notes on things, but I was struck that sequence did win me over by the end of it, but it got in a little bit of a hole, I think, by introducing itself with the Parliament Funkadelic guy. It's just so silly. Like if it had started with one of the witch doctors or a jazz man or something, it's just the Parliament guy. It's so, that's what's great about funk, is it's silly. But
right.
For that to be the way the fourth wall breaks into something that immediately silly, I think put it in a hole a little bit. I had to kind of win me back over the course of the next couple of minutes. But ultimately, yeah, it's so unique. It's something we have never seen in a movie like this before. It's weird enough just for a movie this intense and sort of self-serious to have a fourth wall break like that. Yeah. It doesn't set up something that's going to pay off in the finale. It's just this thing.
It really shakes the movie up too, because the first say hour of this film, I like it all. It's a little long-winded. It's a lot of setup. It's a lot of them running errands, waiting for us to get to the juke joint, kind of waiting for the fireworks show to start, essentially. And so when that happens, it's kind of like, oh, we're here. All right, let's do this now. The movie's getting going again, kind of thing. And that's, I don't know if that's a good thing necessarily, but it's an effective thing, and it really works in the moment. And again, I like all those early scenes, especially like Delta Slim arguing over money and stuff, all good. But it does kind of change things up in a big way, and you're like, oh, this movie is much bigger in scope than I had initially realized. We're doing direct magic shit, or are we? Are we meant to understand that these the spirits of the past and the future are here at once in the room with him, or is it all a little bit more allegorical?
I don't know. I'm glad that because I thought you wouldn't do something like that if it wasn't introducing how he was going to use his guitar to save the day in the end. Which I guess he kind of does by using it as a stake that he stakes the guy with. But
well, Remick wants his power though. It gets down to it, it's full on vampire superhero stuff. It's just you got a power, we're going to take it and use it for us. It's for slightly more interesting reasons, I guess, which is that he misses his people or what. But it's still kind of I don't know. It's the same motivation as the Scarlet Witch in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. So it's big and broad and silly as well.
I'm just glad
I guess he's literally summoning people from the past and the future, or at least their spirits.
I don't think the people in
Like-
the room see those figures, though. I think only we in the audience see those people. And I just, like I said, I'm glad that the siege was not resolved by guitar magic. You know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
that still just plays out. Again, I wanted it to play out a little bit longer. I
have a frustration with that resolution, which is it's the same one in so many vampire movies. Like, how come these vampires don't have any self-preservation sense to them? Like,
you're talking about
him.
just with the sun, like keeping track of the sunrise, or
Yeah,
just how they're
keep track of
willing
the sunrise, guys. Come on,
Okay.
yeah. Uh-huh.
I thought you meant just how they were willing to charge in at the well-armed group.
They're a horde at that point. I get that. That's fine. But you know,
but I'm also like, if I'm a new vampire, and now
I'm not even talking about the new vampires.
I'm
just
immortal.
talking about Remick,
And I think it's pretty awesome that I'm immortal, though. Now, like, I'm being more careful than ever about getting into fight with people holding sharp objects. Like, I got more to lose than ever now. But if I get holy watered in the face, so I don't know if that I'm that intent on killing whoever Delta Slim. Sure, let me be your frontline soldier here. Anyway, I thought
it's a vampire movie thing.
Yeah, you got to keep track of the sunrise too. Like,
From Dusk Till Dawn does the same thing. Like, how many centuries these guys been around to lose it all tonight to the Gecko brothers? You know, come on. That's not.
That's another Vampire Siege movie about brothers, criminal brothers.
Oh,
under
it's
Vampire Siege. I didn't even make the brother connection. Actually,
it's so From Dusk Till Dawn. This movie. It's extremely
I made the honky tonk joint and Vampire Siege connections, but I didn't necessarily make. Oh yeah, it's also criminal brothers coming around town. Okay, we could go on about Sinners for quite a while. We already have. I mean, we could talk about Jack O'Connell a lot too. That would be great.
He's good.
But we have a lot of other stuff to get to. So I'll just leave my review. Great. Has a little too much going on, and also I wish it was 10 minutes longer.
Yeah, I gotta. This is one I gotta rewatch to really, I think, fully understand where it falls. But I mean, it's the kind of movie where I'm just like excited to rewatch it. I'm gonna see this movie again, and probably again and again. I think it's super fun. It's a blast. He's made a really fun movie here, and yeah, currently it's certainly one of the most notable of the year. So it's certainly a good one.
So. And one of the things that we liked most about it there was how it's sort of juggling his history with Marvel and the metatextual stuff there. And then we flip over to what Marvel's actually doing these days. And with Daredevil Born Again, I feel like there's some really interesting topical elements that they're working into that show in really interesting ways, but it's not baking together nearly as well with the weaker elements of that series.
Okay, you're going to have to tell me about this because I have completely skipped Daredevil Born Again.
Not
a second of this have I watched. Yeah.
The Kingpin becomes mayor of New York. He has some very explicit
Trump.
Very explicit Trump allegory. And one of the most interesting parts about it is Michael Gandolfini, recently of Warfare, is his sort of young campaign guy that believes in his campaign before anybody else, and so he gets raised up probably higher than his skills deserve. But he is a MAGA true believer, basically.
Interesting.
That's just all very interesting. And then the stuff that's bad in the show is very uninteresting and very bland. And that's always kind of been the case with the Netflix Daredevil, that the highs are really high and the troughs are pretty boring.
I feel like I've seen, the discourse kind of reflect that the I don't know. I think that the old Netflix stuff is valorized a little bit, just by distance from it, and the fact that it's kind of a flavor that went away from the MCU, and the new Disney Plus shows are just not even close to touching that sort of darkness and maturity. So I think
the highs get remembered.
Yeah, people remember it a little better than it actually was. Is my impression.
Yes, it was a thing that always, every season, even every episode, I felt like had 30 minutes of good material and 22 minutes of just boring shit.
Yeah.
And that's still sort of how Born Again is operating, even though it's not. I mean, it is impressively close to the gruesome level, and they're of the Netflix series, and they're dropping F-bombs, which is still kind of jarring on Disney Plus. It doesn't navigate the doing mature material on Disney Plus as well as Andor does, which is the other thing we're talking about here.
That's a high bar.
Yes. Before we talk about Andor, then, do you want to talk about anything going on HBO?
Well, they're having a moment, aren't they? Look, the most recent episode of The Last of Us was episode 2. What I think everyone's referring to as the big one, and
yes.
It was a big one. It was a great episode, I guess you'd say, but I guess a little overshadowed by the discourse following it. At this point, is how it feels to me. I kind of don't want to hear anything about this show anymore. I just want to watch it. That's because it feels like I can't even really think about it without having it spoiled for me. I did not play the game. I played the first game, and I thought the story was incredible. I didn't care for the gameplay, so I did not play the second game. Not my kind of game.
I really wish that I could have been unspoiled about this development, because I think it would have really excited me. And I love Caitlin Dever. I have ever since Justified, and I think she did a very good job of pulling me into this character very quickly. That is obviously going to be difficult to have affection for or empathy with this character, given what they do kind of straight out of the gate. And I don't know, I guess we're tap dancing around it, but
I think the cat is out of the bag at this point. It's got to be, right? Spoiling Last of Us Season 2, Episode 2. No further than that.
Yeah. There is and I do really like the way they structured this, is that this would have been, God, I think this would have really lit my burner if I had been able to be unspoiled and gone to this and be like, oh, everybody's making a big deal about episode 2 because of this giant siege sequence.
Which was excellent.
Yeah, totally excellent. And then that's almost a cover to get us to the final 10 minutes where the big turn actually happens, and our protagonist is killed by our new sort of protagonist / antagonist. Not quite clear.
Mm-hmm. I mean, hearing afterwards that you actually control this character for large chunks of the game, I was just like, shit.
Including apparently the part where she kills the protagonist of the first game. That's wild.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess
hard to recreate in TV, though.
I mean, I think they didn't really try. They did a different thing, kind of. It sounds like it's going to be a real tough one to. I mean, first off, from what I understand, the game pissed everybody off at the time. I've also heard it's one of the best stories in a video game. People love this game and hate this game in equal measure. And it's interesting. It kind of does not seem to break down along political lines in the way these stupid things often do. It seems like, a lot of people just love it. A lot of people just hate it. And it feels organic to the material. And that's cool. It's nuanced and different. And there's a lot of ways to feel about it. But and again, I am speaking from a place of relative ignorance, so maybe I'm wrong about that, but that was my impression. Beyond that, it's undeniably bold. It's sort of just like
absolutely
staggering that this is happening at this time, and with presumably way more of the show ahead than behind at this point. They've guaranteed a 3rd season, so there will officially be more episodes of this show that exist with Joel dead than alive.
Yeah, that is surprising to me too. I didn't even realize until after this episode aired that they had already done approved a 3rd season. And one hopes, anything can happen at HBO these days, but one hopes they stick with that.
Sure.
I really this is a show that I recognized the evident quality of it, but I had a hard time really getting super excited about. I think there was a post-apocalypse fatigue that I was getting.
Yeah, totally.
And also a prestige TV thing, fatigue of some sorts of, what people went gaga over in the first season was the one-off episode where we just followed Nick Offerman around for an hour of sort of tragic backstory. And I just felt like, that type of thing, even in a post-apocalyptic setting, I had seen done really well on HBO like the year before with Station 11.
Mm-hmm.
And also like versions of it in like their Watchmen series and The Leftovers.
Well, and I mean, just The Walking Dead is there. Like it's that's sort of a cultural phenomenon. And even if you didn't watch the show, which I gave up pretty early on, it's I'm reminded of it every episode of The Last of Us.
Right. Even though Last of Us has cooler, more unique zombies.
Totally. It's better in just about every way, but it is visually, it is structurally doing almost the same exact stuff. I mean, the thing that everyone seemed to be comparing this to, this Joel death was Negan killing the Stephen Yeun character on Walking Dead, which is, something I was culturally aware of, but had long given up on the show at that point. So,
Same here.
Yeah.
I think what Walking Dead did have, though, again, I gave up on it around the same time as you, I think, but what it has that Last of Us doesn't is sort of the pulpier aspect of it and just the sprawling cast that meant that people, they could do those shocking deaths more. And that was part of the fabric of the show, like it was with Game of Thrones or whatever, that nobody is safe thing. Like Last of Us.
Yeah, they've spent their powder here. Yeah.
And it was always very focused on these two main characters, and everybody else is pretty disposable. And, a couple episodes into the first season, it's like, okay, yes, people show up to do 1 or 2 episode arcs, and then they're the person who gets bit. And Joel and Ellie are very sad about that until next week. And now, like having felt that way, this really could have knocked me on my ass if I wasn't so online and.
Yeah, I already know more than I'd like to about what else happens in this, which I didn't seek out. It just sort of happened in the process of being on social media and reading something about Last of Us because I had thoughts on Last of Us. Everyone did this week. So, it's a bummer in that sense. And probably unavoidable, to be perfectly honest, when you're adapting something like this that already had fan outcry. That was a big moment already occurred, and it was a moment in and of itself.
I don't know anything else that happens after this. I just know that I was around too many people that were making. I mean, I knew that a lot of fandom really hated Abby because she did something that they considered unforgivable, and too many people were making coy comments about golf clubs for too long. So that going into like,
right. Exactly. I mean, same here. I wasn't actually spoiled technically, like you. I just kind of like. Oh, I know all this is happening. Fuck. I know exactly what this is. Mm-hmm. I was kind of expecting something like this, even if I didn't realize it. And, I think what else is going to happen is along those lines, too. I kind of just know, I get a sense of where this is headed kind of thing. I don't actually know anything, but I'd be surprised if I'm surprised right now.
Right.
That's just what it is. It's my own fault, I guess. Fine. And so I'll be more careful. For example, I'll be as careful as I am with Andor right now, which is to say I'm complete media blackout once the episodes drop until I've seen them all myself.
Right. Yes. Yeah. That's I am too, man. I have anticipated nothing in the last year or two as much as I have this season of Andor.
Let's talk about Andor. There's other stuff going on. We'll catch him on next week when we're talking about more Andor. Yeah. I want to talk about Andor now. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay. It's back. Should I lead out with my biggest gripe with this show?
Yeah, sure.
It's got the wrong title.
Yeah, I agree.
This honestly, in my mind, this show is called Mothma.
It shouldn't be one character. Honestly, that's the problem. No. It should be some cool. It's a shame
that Rebels was taken by a CGI cartoon.
Rebels might just be the best title for this. Yeah, it needs to be a little bit pulpy, I think, because this, as it is kind of the heightened thing, as it is the sort of, it's still at the end of the day, I mean, it's still doing Star Wars stuff here, and it's sort of hard to recognize it as it is. It's doing our Rebels stuff, and yeah, I mean the ensemble, it's undercut by saying this is the Andor show because clearly there's a lot of great characters here. Andor is one of the less interesting ones, to be perfectly honest.
And I honestly, I framed that as a gripe, but I mean it as a compliment to the show.
Right.
There are 8 characters that I am much more interested in than Cassian Andor in the show that's named after him. I also think this first drop of 3 episodes here really highlights how superfluous he is by keeping him stranded in a comedic subplot for two of the 3 episodes, and then only like showing up for the main thing at the end of the 3rd episode. Yes, the main conflict.
Right. I mean, I guess we got like kind of 4 plot threads here, which is the Mon Mothma's party, Deidre and her Nazi plans, Andor with the stupid rebels, and Bix getting sexually assaulted again, kind of thing. That's and those last 2 joined together at the end. But
she wasn't sexually assaulted last year.
Was she not?
That's
no.
new.
No, right.
She was mentally assaulted.
Correct. And tortured. Poor Bix.
She's had a rough go of it.
Right. So those all 4 are interesting to me. Even the Andor stuff I think is pretty good. I especially like the opening of the first episode of him sneaking in and stealing the experimental TIE fighter. That's a really good action scene. That got me right back into it. I was just like, all right, we're doing it. Andor's back. This is really cool. It looks amazing. The design on this show is just the best, man. It just looks so good. I mean, I guess it's easier to do ships than anything else with CGI, but man, they've got that on lock at this point, I would say.
Yeah, it looks great. I mean, and I love that they're still doing locations shooting. You know, they're planting fields of rye in England to shoot in there. And then if you look really closely, apparently, I saw an interview. There's like little bug creatures crawling through the wheat fields, like Star Wars creatures that are just like in some of the establishing shots. The attention to detail on this is great. You know, down to the finger foods they're serving at the Nazi conference. Like, I think I mentioned this last time we talked about Andor. I love the amount of street foods that we get in the Andor version of Star Wars, and now it's, you know, what kind of lunch they're serving at their Nazi conference, and it's just makes the world of Andor feel so much more lived in and real than the world of Ahsoka. You know,
totally. And I almost almost to the point where it's almost a different thing is what it feels like. Like,
completely.
Can you imagine Luthen Raoul interacting with a Jedi?
Yeah, with Luke Skywalker?
Yeah, like it almost like the Luke Skywalker and the Space Wizards almost make light of the sacrifice of the rebels with all their silly kid shit, you know, in the context of this world. This is heightened and elevated so far beyond the Buck Rogers pulp adventure sci-fi of the original series.
Yeah, I have a hard time imagining this Cassian Andor talking to Obi-Wan Kenobi or this Mon Mothma.
Right. It's kind of crazy that, you know, that the things these people are fighting for and dying for will be decided by Yoda and Luke Skywalker.
It does. It feels completely irresponsible that he turns off that targeting computer. Give it in light.
Exactly.
In light of how many people Stellan Skarsgård has had to murder to get him there.
I mean, that's kind of wonderful, though. That's sort of what I love about this. Yeah, like it's amazing that they were able to find this. That this got bankrolled. You know, like something like The Acolyte, or you know, that has sort of a veneer of, you know, adultness to it, or the Marvel shows. You know, it's not just this. This is sort of the only thing from this entire era of like, we're going to do serious shows about all this stuff that actually pulls it off. I was hopeful that the Dune show would. No, they couldn't do it either. This is unique. This is a unicorn in the current.
They pulled off the seriousness, I suppose.
Sort of. You can't take it that seriously, though. I mean, I guess, yeah, it has to be good too.
Yeah. I mean, with Dune, there's no way you can't take it but seriously. That's sort of the DNA there. Mm-hmm. Star Wars DNA is much more malleable. Like, it's much more of a mutant.
Apparently, I'm amazed how far you can stretch it.
Yeah. So this has to be about the limit of how seriously you can take it, though, and how dark and mature it can get. I don't want
more dark and mature than this. That's for sure. Yeah.
And honestly, yeah, it would. I mean, if the Emperor were on screen here, would it ruin the entire illusion? Shatter? If Darth Vader, they haven't even mentioned Darth Vader,
right?
In this.
I mean, he's in Rogue One, and I feel like this will be an on road to Rogue One. I'm definitely going to rewatch Rogue One after this series. I'm super looking forward to it, frankly, but I'm withholding it right now because I want the complete trajectory. But and you got Vader in there. Maybe that sort of brings it together a little more. It'll be it's so weird the way these things came together. That this is the way this story is being told, where we found out how Cassian Andor dies, and that his life was ultimately successful in this way. 5 years before this show existed, essentially.
If you had told me, in 2012 or whenever they announced that Disney was buying Star Wars, and I was really initially I was optimistic. I was like, you know what? Disney is running Marvel, and they're in 2012. That train was out of the station. They're doing Guardians of the Galaxy now and shit. Mm-hmm. Like this could be. You can do so much stuff with Star Wars, and now they're going to try a bunch of different things, and that's great. Some of it will probably be great. Maybe eventually somebody will make a Knights of the Old Republic show. But if you had told me back then that the highlight of the whole thing, the thing that I would be most into, is going to be. They're going to do a spin-off prequel about this people who stole the Death Star plans. And then they're going to do a spin-off streaming series prequel to that prequel named after the head spy from that prequel movie that you're mostly going to love because it's such a great prequel to what Mon Mothma was doing before A New Hope. I would have thought that you were in the middle of a stroke.
That Mon Mothma is now one of the best characters in Star Wars. Is crazy, huh?
It's wild. Genevieve O'Reilly is so fucking good in this show. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's incredible that they've written her this well, Frank. It's wild. And even like that, look, the Mon Mothma party is the obvious highlight of these first 3 episodes. There's a lot of good stuff in there, but it's definitely the Mon Mothma party. That's the best part. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but yeah, she's right at the top of those.
Yeah, I mean, it overlaps with Skarsgård, and a lot of times the best thing going on the show is whatever he's doing.
Totally, yeah, he's right there too. That doesn't hurt.
But he's just kind of lurking around the edges there. It's really on her, and great. She's leapfrogged up there, because she is one of my top couple Star Wars characters now. I don't know when that happened, but I love the way she's playing her, the way she's being written. She's almost like because I also watched Michael Clayton again recently. Obviously written and directed by Tony Gilroy, and I'm struck by how Mon Mothma is like a version of the Tilda Swinton character from that. The Tilda Swinton villain. She's kind of like the White Lodge version, where she's just this sort of brittle facade with concealing this ball of nerves, making these uncertain moves behind the scenes. And it's villainous in one case, it's heroic in this case. But man, he's got a beat on that.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like, this is the spycraft in the world of this that is being presented here. It is the most anxiety raising thing I can imagine. Like, this is so much more tense for me than, more tense than warfare. Frankly, that we were talking about earlier. This stuff this puts me on edge, and I'm just like, oh God, I wouldn't do well in this world. This situation I would not thrive in. And I'm fascinated by the characters who do, like Luthen and Mon Mothma, that they're able to, negotiate these sort of incredibly difficult spy situations, where if you make the wrong move or the wrong thing or the wrong person hears the wrong thing, then everything falls apart and you're summarily executed. The anxiety of that would drive me insane. And I love seeing it represented in a fucking Star Wars thing where there's, any given scene, you might just see a little mugwump moving props around in the background or something, like they still keep those guys in there.
I wish there was 20% more of them sprinkled in here. Like I've heard that there's more aliens in this season to come, not in these first 3.
They're in there. There's some guys, they're not invited to the Mon Mothma party, perhaps.
Well, they're not invited to the Nazi conference, that's for sure.
Oh, did you hear they talked about the Rakatan in this?
They did talk about the Rakatan invaders, yeah.
Is that straight out of Knights of the Old Republic? Did they originate there? Those catfish guys?
They did, yes. I don't know. Cool. I don't know that it's a given that they will hew to the Knights of the Old Republic game lore that straight, but they pulled the word from there for certain.
What if they start talking about Darth Revan at some point, man? That would be
awesome.
It would be awesome.
I mean, it's an easier thing to just reference very vaguely than it is to like actually nail down.
It's still 1,000
because
years
of the
ago.
whole, 4,000 years ago.
Right.
There's one thing, I guess, a real quibble here. But since I was quibbling with Sinners in their timeline, it does strike me that the one thing that Andor and Rogue One don't have a great handle on is the Star Wars timeline. Like they're hampered a bit here by Star Wars lore being that the Empire is 15 years old.
Sure.
Because like Dedra says she grew up in an Imperial orphanage. And like, well, there was no Empire when you were a child.
Right.
And in Rogue One, Andor says that he's been in this fight since he was 6 years old. And like that doesn't really track. My headcanon is that it's interesting if he actually is saying he was a separatist. He was on like the Count Dooku side.
Really? The Empire is only about 15 to 20 years. That's the entire run of Palpatine's dominion.
Because Luke Skywalker's age.
Yeah, that sucks.
Yeah, I know.
That sucks. Oh, well. Okay. That's too bad.
Yeah.
I mean, you really do get the feeling like that this is something that's been in place for at least a century.
Generations. Yeah, exactly.
Well.
Who cares? This world works so well on its own terms that it can be an Elseworld if you want it to be.
I don't want it to be, though. I want it to... I mean... Like, I don't want them to meet Obi-Wan Kenobi, I guess.
No. You want Yaddle to show up to that wedding.
Sure. Yeah, you can have that. Yeah.
I did want another Rodian or two in the crowd.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind having a walrus face guy or one of those dudes show up, a Reese.
You could have Figrin Dan and the modal nodes playing the reception.
That old guy, guy who betrays them on the farm, he could be an alien. That would be fun.
Yeah, exactly. I guess it wouldn't be as shocking if he was the guy who looks like Satan, the devil horns.
It would be shocking if he was a Ninub guy, though.
Yeah, there you go.
It's like, you betrayed us. That'd be fun.
You son of a bitch. No, okay. I said that they should have the band from Jabba's Palace playing the wedding reception, but then we wouldn't get the disco ball droid, which is incredible. That's
what an ending! Just amazing.
God.
Oh God, Mon Mothma having a nervous breakdown while she dances.
Yeah, I know. It's
like holy shit, so good.
Insane the stuff that I'm going through with these Mon Mothma scenes where I'm like, she's like the good version of Tilda Swinton and Bill Clayton, and at the end I'm like, is Mon Mothma going through the ending of like Memories of Murder here? Or
I mean, the only issue I have with the Mon Mothma stuff is like, you know what, that guy who's like threatened to blackmail you, that guy, you can kill him. That's fine. I don't think you got to feel too bad about that dude.
I mean, but it's also just the general anxiety you were talking about.
Well, that's very clear. Yeah,
you can't count on anybody. That guy.
But you know what the resolution on this one is? Like Luthen says, it's like, I think you know what we're doing here.
You know the number. Yeah. That's so fucking good.
I don't know what you're talking about. How nice for you.
Yeah.
That's so good.
And it's like you said, it's amazing the tension that builds here, despite knowing that things have to generally work out for Mon Mothma.
Right.
That she's not going to be captured and executed. And I know how things work out for Andor, which is maybe why it's kind of like okay to remove him in his own subplots, because he carries some plot armor with him wherever he goes.
Well, the problem of the prequel, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but those people on the farm planet are not safe while he's not there.
Well, I mean, I'd go so far as to say that there are death counters hanging above at least 2 or 3 of these characters in a very real way. Bix and Luthen, I would say.
No, I think Bix is going to be fine. I think they've done enough damage to Bix already that they don't need to kill her on top of everything. Luthen,
he's got a bit of a flirty relationship with Jyn Erso, so I don't know how they'll handle that, because
I don't think have they established that in these episodes that Bix and Andor were back together?
Aren't they? I don't know. Maybe not. It feels like that's where this has all been headed. When I seeing Bix return, I was like, oh yeah, okay, that must be his girlfriend for sure now. That's
where, yeah. I mean, that's where it seemed like it was heading in the first 2 episodes of the first season, and then they took some swerves with her.
Yeah.
And I don't know anymore, which is fine. It's great to be uncertain about things in a prequel.
It is.
The one I think that the death that's going to hurt me the most is I have, in addition to Mon's still first in my heart, but
Mon's
I'm also
Mon's
fallen
got blood
quite,
on him.
yeah, but I'm also fallen quite in love with Luthen's second in command, his assistant, just hyper competent comms lady.
Yeah. She's not looking great for her. Just prequel rules here.
Yeah, she's just so much more expendable
Mm-hmm.
than anybody else. But she is just that. I think that probably was written to be a nothing part. It's just somebody that Luthen could talk to in his shop. And
that was what she was in the first season.
Yeah.
Already kind of progressed beyond that now.
Yeah. And then she met with, the Bell character once and was such a convincing hard ass there that I'm like, you know what? Now I want to follow her home. Let's go. Mm-hmm. Let's do this. But we would say we go home with Deidre and Cyril. And
I gotta bring these guys up.
Yeah.
Wow. They're great. They're terrific. They're fascinating. Big fan of all these actors. I love Meister Qyburn and Ben Mendelsohn. They're great too, and they're those sequences, and of course Catherine Hunter, triumphant return.
We will, once this season is over, probably be getting around to a Tragedy Macbeth episode, which will complete our conversion into a Catherine Hunter fan cast. We've been talking a lot about how great she is lately. But yeah. Wonderful scenes there with them. I really hope that Deidre putting her in her place does not mean we're done with that character. Like we've seen the last of Cyril's mom.
Well, I struggle to imagine what plot relevance she's going to have, but I guess you never know. It's cool that, I don't know, you bring her back for one showcase sequence, as you do here. That might be the most you do with Catherine Hunter, I'm afraid. But you're right. It would be nice to see her again.
We keep hearing about Uncle Harlow. Maybe that, if Deidre and Cyril have a falling out, maybe he has to go to Uncle Harlow for something and she's back in the mix then. I mean, do you think that our little space Nazis here have a very stable relationship? Are they going to make it for the long haul?
I don't know, man. I have no idea what they're doing with these characters, which is kind of exciting. Mm-hmm. I mean, I assume we're going to be doing some Gorman related activities here. That's certainly set up. So who knows? Who knows what Cyril's getting up to there? And, if he's involved in that, or if they're going to try to do long term or long distance. And if we'll see if that makes it harder to maintain, as it often does.
I mean, I would say it doesn't seem like the healthiest relationship, but actually the relationship seems fine. They don't seem like the healthiest people, but
they're well matched, I think.
And for maybe the least likely to get divorced of anybody because
that social
stability
stigmas,
is so ingrained into what they're both all about.
Yeah, very ordered existences for sure.
Right.
I don't know. Right. Maybe Mon Mothma's kid though. I think that marriage is secure because it's based on agreement and power.
I mean that marriage is secure until she decides she can piss off Mon Mothma more by divorcing the kid.
Man, that scene when Mon Mothma breaks down talking to her right before she is presented. Mm-hmm. He was like, "You don't have to do this. You don't have to go through this. I swear to God, it'll be fine. You have the choice to make for yourself." And she's like, I wish you actually were drunk. Yes. And Mon Mothma just collapses and just realizes that, that she fucked up her daughter, basically. God, what a scene. That's what's so incredible is like you can see the things she's lost by her role.
Yeah,
it's amazing. Like, and she recognizes it too. God, I'm really curious what they're going to do with her over the course of these episodes. Sorry, but I love back onto Mon Mothma. She's that fascinating.
Yeah, and I love the nuance of that mother-daughter relationship too, because it's not as simple as the first draft version is that the daughter's rebellion against the mom is brought out directly by Mon Mothma's rebel activities, but it's actually something more. Like the girl is not totally wrecked when we meet her. She's not, I don't know, a death stick addict or whatever, but
she's not an Imperial fangirl. Yeah,
no, and she's not that. That would be a little more of a direct sort of contrast or whatever. It's just that Mom's rebel activities and her spy kind of rendered her unable to bridge the gap and like make the efforts and can come as clean as would be necessary to bridge this gap that would be pretty bridgeable for a normal parent and child of this age. But she's
too much attention.
She just can't be open.
Yeah, there's that. Yeah, God, it's just I can't believe the nuance of these characters or of the ceremony itself or the entirety of that sequence. It's not just how great what Mon Mothma's doing. The design aspects of what these wealthy Chandrilan aristocrats do for a wedding is so well thought out and considered and designed. And that big speech that the husband, who we don't really respect or have interest in, he drops that monologue and it means something to him, and you feel it, and it's really good. It's all this stuff is this cultural attention that they're paying, not just to the edges of society, but let's really dig into this this wealthy enclave here in the mountains. It's fascinating stuff. I could just take it. I could spend 3 hours there and not leave and be fascinated. It's cool.
The design of the circular branch that she has to step into
during
the ceremony, and the ritualistic sort of things you say when you hand over the knife to cut the braid off. It's all I could watch 3 hours of my big fat Chandrilan wedding there.
But they do this with everything. They do this with you remember the episode where they break into the payroll on the planet in season 1, and there's the solar event, and the local populace has this weird sort of pagan religion based around it, and they're all doing they're doing their own observances, which they use as a cover for the heist. That they give that a lot of attention to. I love this stuff. This sort of the cultural attention to detail that they're bringing to this is unmatched anywhere in Star Wars, I think.
Oh, completely. Yeah, I mean, we've complained, criticized Star Wars in the past. Is that the great thing about
it's a desert planet, exactly.
Yeah, the last thing I want to do is use Andor as a club to beat George Lucas with, because I think George Lucas is a visionary and a genius, actually, that gets lost a bit in his last couple decades. Right. But the great thing about the original trilogy Star Wars is that the imagination there is parsecs wide and also 2 inches deep. And the worst aspects of the extended universe stuff, they just grab onto a piece of that and make it 2.5 inches deep by saying, yes, this is a desert planet. This is a race of dancers, and this is a race of jazz musicians, and that's all this species does. And blah, blah. And Andor is such a corrective to that it's a shame, I think, that we're all the cultures we're getting these looks at are so thoroughly human and they don't have Rhodians and Bith and Wookiees mixed in too, to a degree.
I would like that, yeah.
But I get churlish to complain about my big fat Chandrilan wedding. I had such a good time at that reception.
I wonder if we'll get something like that over the course of this. I mean, there's a promise that we're going to Gorman, but it doesn't sound like that's going to be an alien planet.
Seems like that's all humans too.
There's spider people or something. Well, maybe not spider people, but I'm excited for the creepy spider scene that has been promised.
They're livestock, I think, the spiders. It seems like Gorman is a human, so they're just like Chandrila and Aldani were, and Ferrix, but they're also well thought out. And I don't want to give Tony Gilroy notes on this now. Like, what he's doing is
it's amazing.
I'm loving it so much.
Yeah, having a blast. Even the way he writes the Imperials is the best it's ever been done. Not just Deidre and Cyril. The big Orson Krennic scene here, the monologue, or I guess it's a series of scenes. Really, it's such good stuff, and it so gets to the root of just it feels like Nazis. It feels like Nazis making plans in a big way, but not in an arch way. In a real banal way.
Yeah, it's disturbing because it's not arch, but
I mean, there's presentment. They have the little, their silly little lapels or buttons, little blue squares and such. they all take such pride in, and the cape, of course. Krennic's all about the cape. But
it's mostly not Arch, but you're right. Mendelsohn is so evidently happy to be there. That's for a streaming prequel series on Disney. That is not the vibe you get from a lot of the big names that make cameos. Is what I feel like.
He's a gift of an actor. God, that is a guy who never condescends to the material. He will give you his absolute all in Secret Invasion. Won't help, but he's gonna show up for you. He is and put on the Skrull makeup, and he's just a delightful actor. And this is a really fun, banal, evil character for him to play. Yes. I love how shallow this guy is. How little nuance there is in Krennic, and he still manages to be really memorable. He's a great part of Rogue One too. I don't know how many more Rogue One folk we think we're going to see. I believe Saw Gerrera for sure.
I think for sure. Yeah. One of Jimmy Smits doesn't seem to have a problem dropping in for a scene here and there.
Oh, that'd be fun.
I mean, we have to be introduced to the droid, the Alan Tudyk droid, at some point.
Sure, of course. I forgot all about him. Yeah,
but I don't know that there's anybody else that matters.
We won't see Donnie Yen. Yeah,
everybody else they meet in Rogue One. It would be. Right. It would not make sense for him to have encountered them previously.
I don't know. Will Mads Mikkelsen show up? Will maybe. This is all about the Death Star, right? That's the idea. I mean, it's kind of
that'll probably be a one-scene cameo, I think.
Yeah. The arc of Cassian Andor is essentially tied to the Death Star, ultimately. So I mean, they're probably going to talk about it at least this year.
Yeah. Oh, yes. He'll get a name dropped at least. But who cares about that? I want to know how many more parties Mon Mothma is going to throw between now and the Battle of Yavin. That's where my head's at. That's where my heart's at right now. So we'll come back next week and see what kind of parties we're throwing. If Andor is going to really get fully involved in his own show at some point, that'd be
fine.
Great, but unnecessary.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right. Yeah. Next week, more Andor.